Hello, everyone. It is your boy Pred here, and welcome back to yet another tier list. Yay! But this time, it's a tier list with a twist because it's a tier list that I have actually decided to make. Yes, me. I did this. I made this. I made this for you. Well, technically, I made it for myself, but if anyone wants to take a crack at it, I'll easily put it in the description link on the video. But let us start with this tier list, and I decided to make it because A, nobody else did, and B, well, gotta have some love for a underrated and somewhat forgotten game series, in my opinion, which is a shame because this game series is actually really, really solid. So, what's the game series I'm talking about? Star Wars Rogue Squadron. Yes, still the best Star Wars flight simulator ever. And I will fight you if you say otherwise. I have so many fond childhood memories of the Rogue Squadron series. I played all of them when I was a kid. I enjoyed all of them as a kid. As an adult, I still enjoy them. I'm not going to say they're all perfect. Some of them are definitely of the time period as far as the visual fidelity and mechanics are concerned. There are some parts of all three games that I just don't care for, and I think it does get a little too hard for its own good, but other than that, they're still very, very enjoyable. Also, I hate the fact that the PC version that's been released on good old games and Steam runs like absolute ass if you don't know how to um, uh, if you don't have the technical know-how to get it running properly with you know uh, third-party setups. But regardless, I I I still enjoy it quite a bit, and we're going to go through all the levels in the game. Yes, even the bonus levels, surprisingly enough. And we are going to rank them from basically, worst to best. I've made my own Star Wars themed, ranking system right here, but basically best, pretty good, mid tier, could have been good with some, could have been good, but not real, but some stuff lets it down. Absolute garbage. Um, yeah, and we're going to rank everything through it. Couple things before. One, I do apologize for the inconsistencies in the uh, pictures. I wanted to ensure that they actually, you know, had text to them and were easy to read, just so people could figure out what the levels were. And I did my best to ensure that because one thing I hate with regards to tier maker lists sometimes is that people don't put descriptions for it. I mean, if you're familiar with the source material, then that's one thing. If you have like pictures and stuff, but sometimes people just post screenshots and expect us to figure out what the hell it's supposed to be, which I really don't like. So I did put, you know, description level descriptors there, but I did try and make them as readable as possible. So if all the pictures are inconsistent, forgive me, please. I much rather would prioritize people to know what they're actually ranking rather than just having them all fit together. And two, of course, my opinion. Of course, I am just ranking them based off my own personal opinion and feelings. Obviously, feel free to disagree. That's why I'm going to post the tier list. That's why I've got the tier list in the description, so you can show me the rankings for yourself if you are so inclined to. And yeah, that's about it. So with that said, let's get to it. Let's start with Rogue Squadron 1, which is still actually a very enjoyable game. Um, does look a bit jank, does still run a bit jank. I actually think that the PC version is better than the N64 version just because the Frame rate is a hell of a lot smoother. But uh, but yeah, let's um let's get to it with the first level. And first level we've got is the ambush at Mos Eisley. Uh, Probably one of the most basic starter levels ever. Fly around, shoot some probe droids, and then at the end, shoot the TIE bombers down as fast as you can, of which there are six. Really not that tough of a level. It's a nice, solid introduction into the mechanics of the game. It's nothing too difficult. You really do have to try to not at least get silver or even gold your first attempt. Um, So I can't really say anything too bad about it. It's the first level, but so yeah, it goes in the middle. Next up is Rendezvous at Barkesh. Um, Basically, you have to keep an entire convoy safe from ATSTs, turrets, TIE bombers, all that sort of stuff. Not that tough of a level, provided you actually know what you're doing. It can be a little bit tough to gold medal it because you need everybody alive at the end, and if you're not on top of everything, that's the it. You could easily go from doing solid to getting a game over like that. Biggest problem I have with this level though is it is so goddamn slow. Um, there's really no way to speed up a level. It really does feel very arbitrarily pace to and I get it for a first time player. I get what the game's doing. As a first time player, you want to stick with what you want to stick with regards to how it functions, how it operates, all that good stuff. But at the same time, on repeat playthroughs, you're just like, hurry the hell up already. Um, so I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of it for that. There's nothing egregiously offensive about it, so I'll put it straight in the middle. I just wish it could go a little bit faster. Next up is Search for the Nona. This time you're flying around in A wings for the first time, not X wings, and you basically have to find a down ship and get all the data and stuff off of it. Defend the ship from TIEs and ATSTs and tank droids. It's actually a really fun level. It does pose a decent challenge, especially with the TIE interceptors and how weak you can be, given how piddly the A-Wing is with regards to the damage output it could take. It's not very hard to get a silver or gold medal on this, but it still provides a decent challenge nevertheless. Only real gripe I have is, one, it's kind of a drab-looking level as far as the art style is concerned, and two, it can get a little bit tough towards the end when you're trying to defend the shuttle from TIE interceptors, because those things just have a nasty habit of getting up behind you and just shredding your health to bits if you're not careful. But I'd still say it's a very solid level. Next up is Defection at Corellia. Ugh. Fun fact about this, when I was younger, I did not have an N64. The PC version of Rogue Squadron was the only thing I had, and I played it using a joystick. And I got stuck on this level because I could not figure out how to do a particular thing in this level with the joystick. Um, it starts off simple enough, shoot some probe droids, destroy some TIE bombers that are bombing a couple areas, and then it all goes to hell in a handbasket towards the midway point of the level when frickin' AT-ATs show up. And anyone who's played Rogue Squadron knows exactly what I'm talking about. You have to do the whole, wrap the legs around them with the tow cable 3 times and then they fall. Can't destroy them any other way because they're functionally invincible. Yes, people have tried hacking into the game to play non-snowspeeder levels or to play snowspeeder levels with non snowspeeder craft. They are functionally invincible. Thanks, Factor 5. Um, And yeah, it's a real pain in the ass. And the reason it's also a real pain in the ass is one, compared to the other two games, the controls for the tow cable loop-de-loops really are very cumbersome and kind of stiff and awkward. So trying to ensure that you actually do it perfectly without one, going too far and breaking it, forcing you to start over again, or two, just ramming straight into the actual AT-AT itself as an exercise of frustration. And it's not helped by the fact that the level takes place at night around a lot of hills and hilly terrain, so you can easily just veer off into one of the cliffs or hills nearby, and boom, that's it, life lost. Uh, it's a little bit easier and actually, no, it's not easier because it's almost like a pick your poison thing. If you're playing on PC, it's absolutely infuriating if you try to do it other than using a controller. Although setting up a controller is not exactly the easiest thing to do in the PC version to begin with, as you might expect for a game made in 1998 with no controller support. But trying to use it with a joystick or a mouse and keyboard is nigh on impossible. And if you're playing on the N64 version, the lack of graphical fidelity and absolute jank frame rate will probably ensure that you also smack it into it, and which is also bad considering that the N64's joystick is not exactly the most reliable either and tends to degrade over time. So yeah, it's a bit infuriating in all honesty. Once you get past that hurdle, however, it's honestly not that difficult of a level, but even still, it can be I'd say it kind of does drag it down to the lower tiers. Next up is the liberation of Gerard 5. Basically, you have to protect Y-Wing craft while they disable, I want to say they're like transport ships or something, but basically keep them safe from turrets, especially missile turrets. Yeah, this is the first level of the game that introduces missile turrets, and missile turrets are the devil's spawn as far as Rogue Squadron 1 enemies are concerned. You will learn to dread that stupid lock-on sound if your dodging skills are not up to par, which given the time period, they're not going to be, especially first time. Um, they're not that big of a pain once you figure it out, and the Liberation of Gerard 5 isn't that bad of a level as far as the introduction is concerned. There are levels where they're going to spam the shit out of you with missile turrets, and it's going to be absolutely impossible to deal with. But you know, it could be worse. It's not the most exciting level on the face of the planet. It's 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 fine. I'm not saying it's good or it's bad. It's fine. It could be a little bit difficult to get gold medal if you're trying to go for gold medal runs, but again, it's nothing that difficult. So kind of mid tier. Next up is the Jade Moon. Um, Kind of the same problem I have with Corellia that it's so friggin' dark, especially the N64 version. This is missile turrets do show up again, and they're a little bit more difficult to deal with, especially if you're trying to get to the upgrade. Which, for those of you who know, but for those of you who don't, the upgrades in the Rogue Squadron series, you basically get upgrades that increase your blaster fire, or give you homing functions for your secondary weapons, or increase your shields, or what have you. They can be incredibly useful and pretty much mandatory if you're trying to go for gold medal runs when you replay the missions. The problem with them in the first game, though, is that in order to get the gold medal, you have to pick up the upgrades every single time. So even if you have the upgrade already, and you know you have the upgrade already, you still have to actually pick it up in order for the gold medal run to count. They don't do this in the later games, but, you know, and thank God they don't, but because it is a massive pain in the ass to do it. And that's kind of the problem with the Jade Boot is that where they put the missile turrets, one, you have to destroy the shield generator to begin with in order to escort the commandos in, which is a problem because there's a lot of peaks and valleys, and dead ends and blind turns that combine with the missile turrets really don't make it um, fun when you're trying to get at it. But also because if you take a bit too long and you're trying to defend the commandos, especially when the TIE bombers come around, they'll easily wipe them out like nobody's business. If even one dies, boom, gold medal run done, which can be aggravating. At the same time, however, I do think that the level design itself is kind of solid. I do like the aesthetics of it. It does provide a fair challenge, for the most part. And I'm not going to say that it's awful. It's just that there are some issues with it, so I put it there. Next up is the Imperial Construction Yards, which I personally think is one of my absolute favorite levels of the first game, if not my absolute favorite. Basically, you go in, you destroy some radar dishes first to avoid detection. If you get a bit too close, obviously mission failed. But they're not too difficult to knock out. And then you have to take your snow speeder and destroy the entire facility. Basically, just shoot everything in sight. And it is so cathartic, especially when you have to destroy the AT-AT factory and you get to destroy all the AT-ATs that are completely non-functional. Oh, it's fun. It's absolutely fun. Only thing I've had issues with is in the GOG version, sometimes it crashes after you complete the level, which I don't know how it does it or why. I still try to figure it out. I think for me, it always happens after you end up dying even once, which is kind of an issue. But other than that, I'd still say it's an absolutely fantastic level. Easily one of the most fun in the first game. So up to S tier it goes. Next up is the Assault on Kyle 2. This is the first of, thankfully, two missions where you are forced to use the Y-Wing. Um, yeah, you'll notice I don't really like the Y-Wing missions, and there's a good reason for that. First off, it's a bit jank with regards to the aiming of the proton bombs in the first game. You have to because one of the things that the first game does is you can switch between multiple camera angles or perspectives, which you'd think would be really nice, and it is kind of cool. But, you know, the other problem is that adjustability also means that there are some angles that are going to work out really well depending on what you're doing. There are some angles that are going to be absolutely useless. And with the Y Wing, it's really, really, really bad. Because you can't necessarily get the proper angle in order to figure out where the bombs are going. And you can also kill yourself with the proton bombs, which I think is also possible in the second game, but you have to be like really close to it. But considering the poor targeting angle of the first game, you're going to be accidentally kill yourself with bombs for quite a bit. And the other thing is that unlike the other games, which have the bombs regenerate every 15 seconds or so, the amount of bombs you get, the 20 proton bombs, that's it. Once they're done, they're out. You're not regenerating them again unless you lose a life. And thankfully, lost lives don't detriment to your medal score like they do in the later entries, but even still, it's an absolute pain in the ass. And this level is an absolute pain in the ass to do it because, one, you go through a bunch of canyons, which, considering how bad the Y-Wing maneuvers to begin with, is really nice and fun. And they also like to put missile turrets down on the canyon floors below, which is also really nice and fun. And yeah, it's honestly a bad level. It's not fun at all. It's not quite as bad as the other level we're going to, but still. Next up is the Rescue on Kessel mission, where you have to disable a train that's carrying Wedge to an Imperial prison. It's a fairly short, simple level. Just kill all the enemies, spam the train with ion turrets, get it done as fast as you can. It can be a little bit tough on gold medal runs, but runs, but it's not the most strenuous mission on the face of the planet, so I'd put it mid tier. Next up is the Prisons of Kessel, which is a, actually a fairly solid mission. I do have a couple gripes with it. One, um, the enemy count is ridiculously high, and there's a specific way to have to up the enemy count, which can be a little bit tough to figure out for people who aren't familiar with it. So gold medal runs could be kind of a pain in the ass. There's a lot of missile turrets in really bad and inconvenient spots just to be dicks. And and again, it kind of has the same problem with the Rendezvous Barkesh mission where the shuttle does go at kind of its own pace, and you really do have to be on top of it. At least your first time playing it. When you're playing it again, you could just go around and shoot everything and destroy everything inside, and then have the mission be a breeze. But it's still going to take time. But honestly, it can still be a bit of a fun mission, all things considered. I just think that those flaws do drag it down just a little bit. Next up is the Battle Above Talaran mission. Um, this is actually a fairly fun mission. Basically, destroy a bunch of Imperial labeled Tabana gas canisters and make sure that everything's secured. Gripes that I have with it is that one, they do start putting turrets in the on the gas platforms themselves, which is kind of a pain in the ass, especially when they're missile turrets. And again, you're playing this with the A wing to start off with, so your shields are pretty weak. And the next up is in the final 10% of the level. There's a shitload of TIE interceptors that come out and will easily shred you to bits. So getting a gold medal could be a bit tough on this mission. But other than that, I'd actually say it's fairly solid, all things considered. Escape from Fest. Oh boy. Um, this is the final snow speeder level in the game, and man, did Factor 5 give you your money's worth with it. Basically, you have to escort three ATPTs, captured ATPTs, to the end of the level. The only problem is that everything is trying to kill these damn things. There are three AT-ATs at the start of the level, one of which is in front of the ATPTs themselves. And you have to tie up all three of them as fast as possible because because the ATPTs are really friggin' weak. And if you dawdle for a bit, they're gonna die. So you're gonna have to tie up the AT-ATs as fast as you can. And then tank droids come and make sure that and shoot at the ATPTs, which isn't that big a deal if you're on top of them, but there's so many that spawn in, it could be really, really tough to keep track of them. And then TIE bombers show up. And if one TIE bomber goes through, it will easily wipe all of them out, and your mission fails. Getting a gold medal on this is probably one of the most strenuous exercises in patience that you're going to have to employ because it's not just a matter of actual skill. It's a matter of timing everything out as best as you can and having as much rote memorization to tackle which part of the level in order to ensure that you get a gold medal. It's probably the toughest level in the entire game for most people. For a lot of Rogue Squadron veterans, it's probably the most hated level in the entire game. For damn good reason. It's really friggin' tough. But I will say this. I kind of enjoy the challenge that this level provides. I'm not saying it's a good level. It is way too tough for its own good, especially with regards to the limitations that the first game has with regards to its controls and mechanics. But I do enjoy trying to tackle gold medal runs in this because it's honestly a really solid as much of a test of memorization and a test of luck as it can be, it really does put your skills to the limit. And I think there actually is a very rewarding adrenaline surge that comes from it. It's like it's like felling a really tough Dark Souls boss. You know, It- it's a pain in the ass, but at the end of the day, once you finally beat it and do really well at it, there's nothing better. At the same time, though, I totally understand why people hate this level. So I'm just gonna put it in the not in the bottom tier, but up above it. Um, because my own personal enjoyment aside, yeah, is bullshit. Next up is the blockade on Chandrilla level. This one's all right. It's mostly just defending everything from TIE bombers from TIE bombers, so you're gonna get your money's worth with a lot of kills and everything. Not too difficult to get going on if you know what you're doing. So it's mid. Fuck the Radon Sullust. Once again, another Y-Wing level. Big open area. A lot of missile turrets that will easily chew through your shields. A lot of targets you're going to have to destroy. No regenerating bombs. And you have to do, and you have to destroy the giant like shield minor core thing in the middle. And you want to know how fast you need to do this? 4 minutes, 30 seconds to get a gold medal. And you have to have a shot accuracy of 80% or better. This level is absolutely goddamn infuriating. Absolutely abysmal to have to go through. It is just so badly designed. And the limitations of the game and it being the first installment really make themselves known. I hate the Radon Sullust so goddamn much. Fuck that level. Next up is Moff Cyrdan's Revenge. This actually can be a fairly tough level if you don't know what you're doing. The gold medal requirements are ridiculously tight and stringent on it. One wrong move and boom, you're done, just like Escape from Fest. Um, and the final boss at the end with Moff Cyrdan can either be an absolute anticlimax if you know what you're doing, or completely infuriating if you don't. So honestly, I think this is one of the weaker levels in the game. In all honesty, I know there are probably people who really like this level. For me, nah. And finally, the Battle of Calamari, where you actually get access to the V-Wing and unlock the V-Wing to use in other levels where you can absolutely stomp and wreck shit with it. Um, it's a fairly enjoyable level for the most part. It is a little bit too difficult for its own good with the tiny fighters sometimes, but sometimes the V-Wing's a little bit more fragile than I would like. But than that, destroying world devastators and seeing them fall is a pretty satisfying adrenaline rush. So yeah, into the into second tier it goes. Next up is all the bonus levels. After the main campaign, Baker's Canyon. It's not really that good in all honesty. I mean, I've never been a big fan of the Baker's Canyon runs in any of the games just because racing to me in a game like this isn't really that fun. If I wanted to race in Star Wars, I would just go play Star Wars Episode 1 Racer or Racer Revenge. I wouldn't race in Rogue Squadron. And really, this is that bonus levels where the somewhat stiff flight controls are a huge detriment as far as accuracy it goes and everything. And it's not that difficult to unlock. You just need you just need to get all bronze medals in all missions. So, but even still, I wouldn't say it's that satisfying. Next up is the Death Star Trench Run, which I'm also going to put at the bottom just because it's really not that fun. It's kind of boring. It's very plain. I honestly do think that the sequel does a far better rendition of the Death Star Trench Run, and I think for getting all silver medals, kind of not worth it. And then finally, the Battle of Hoth. which I'll put a little bit higher because I do get more enjoyment out of this than the other bonus levels. But again, it's very basic. The gold medal requirements are actually fairly stringent, almost stupidly so, in my opinion. It doesn't really have the grand, majestic scale of everything. And, for being the reward that you get for beating all missions with gold medals, I honestly don't think it's nearly as worth it as the game designers want it to be. Next up is going to be Rogue Squadron 2 Rogue Leader, easily the best um out of the entire series in my opinion. I honestly don't think that there is a better Star Wars flight simulator game than Rogue Squadron 2. It's it's really it's a really nice it's really nice. Um first up is obviously the Death Star attack. And yeah, it's a pretty solid level to start off with. It's very fun. It's very, it recreates the movie rather well. I honestly like doing everything. There are a couple of criticisms I have for it. One, the TIE fighter section can be a bit of a pain in the ass just because it's dark gray fighters against an all black background. So trying to find the little bastards is an exercise in tedium sometimes. The other thing is that the actual Death Star trench run itself can be a bit tough if you don't know what you're doing. But overall, I'd still say it's a really good level. Great way to start the game, in fact. Next up is the Ison Corridor Ambush. This level's all right. I'm not gonna say it's good. I'm not gonna say it's bad. I do think the fog section where is could be a bit tough sometimes, but it's honestly not that hard of a level. Um, Nothing too memorable, nothing too egregious. Purely in the middle. Next up is Battlefield Hoth, or the Battle of Hoth. Sorry for the mistiming. Yeah, I'd put it into S tier. It's a much better recreation of the Battle of Hoth than it was in Rogue Squadron. It really does capture the feeling of the scene from Empire Strikes Back. Gold medal requirements are a little bit too stringent in my opinion. I think if they eased up on them, it would be better. But other than that, it's still a damn near flawless level. I can't say anything better about it. Next up is the Prisons of Maw. Um, it's kind of the first part of it is kind of boring having to disable a bunch of shield generators, and for some reason the game always kind of glitches out where if you get to a specific thing it just forces you to lose a life for some reason because you're caught in an infinite cycle of hurting. I don't know why. Maybe it's just my copy, maybe it's happened to other people, who knows. And then the second part is just going around helping a trade full of survivors. It can get really annoying having to hear them constantly ask for help. Uh, Really, the main problem with the Y-wing missions is that for the most part they're just kind of dynamically boring, and and getting a gold medal run is pretty pretty tough on this one. I still haven't gotten it, and I've been playing this game for a long time. You know, so yeah, I put it kind of in the bottom tier, in all honesty. Next up is Razor Rendezvous, where you're playing the B-Wing and destroying a Star Destroyer. I mean, this level is pretty challenging. It can be pretty tough sometimes, but if you know what you're doing, nothing is more satisfying or gratifying than taking down a Star Destroyer single-handedly. And it's an awesome adrenaline rush. I'd easily put it as one of the best levels of the entire game. And the follow-up, Vengeance of Cothless, where you're trying to extract information from the destroyed Star Destroyer, is also a really solid level as well. Um, I love the multifaceted, multi-part things of having to switch between different ships. You start off in the X-Wing defending the transport, you switch to the Snowspeeder to trip up AT-ATs, which is a lot easier, in my opinion, in this game than it was in the first row squadron. Even if they are hip deep in water, it's still very satisfying. And then switch it over to a Y wing to bomb open the hull. It's not that tough to get gold on. It's exhilarating. It's a really, really solid level. Easily S tier. Imperial Academy Heist. Um, this one is actually kind of unique in how it's presented. Um, because how you play the level is dependent on how the internal clock in your GameCube is set up. If you play it during the day, so anytime so I think between like 6 a.m. to 4 p.m. or 5 p.m. I want to say, then what you have to do is disable a bunch of sensors in the Y wing, sneak in, bomb everything in sight, and then steal the shuttle. Boom, you're done. It can be a bit tough sometimes just because of the fog of war obscuring it, and some of the sensor locations are kind of tough. So you need good memorization skills to figure out where to target them. But the Y wing part of it is really nice. But when your GameCube clock switches over to 6 p.m. and later, then you have to do it at night in a snow speeder. And you gotta sneak through them and do it all stealth like. It's absolutely infuriating trying to do this at night. As a kid, I could never do it at night. I've gotten a bit better at it now that I've gotten older, but it's still a really tedious process because, hey, look at that. A stealth mission in a game that wasn't designed for stealth. Gee, whatever could go wrong with that? And by the way, for any of you who haven't played this, asking, why not just shoot the sensors? You'll game over instantly if you do. Trust me. So I'd honestly have to put it in the bottom tier just because it's an interesting idea. It's a neat gimmick to take advantage of the hardware, but at the same time, one is so clearly better than the other that it's not even funny. Like, if I were to rank them individually, I'd say that the Y wing portion would probably be in the second tier, and the Snowspeeder section would be straight to the bottom tier. Uh, I commend Factor 5 for the effort, but yikes, did the execution not go out well? Um, yeah, I'm not a big fan of the Radon Bestman level. I mean, destroying all the balloon turrets is pretty fun, but once you get into Cloud City and you have to destroy the shield generators, oh man, oh man, is it impossible? Just because the twisty, curvy, maze-like area of it's just not fun. It's really, really not fun to have to do that. If you've got stupid memorization and stupid piloting skills, cool, go for it. I personally am not a big fan of it. I think that entire maze section is where the somewhat twitchy controls of the game, especially if you're pilot the A-wing, really betray it a lot. And it's just and the gold medal times once again are absolutely ridiculous. So yeah, it's not fun. Next up is the Battle of Endor. Sorry. Yeah, I got I got stuck on this level for a long time. Um, just there's a lot of stuff going on here. I mean, it should feel like an appropriately epic level. Really, it absolutely should. The problem is that there's so much shit that's getting thrown at you that you can't keep track of. Like, there are so many issues with regards to the AI that will sometimes dive bomb you. Your shields will get shredded in an instant. And no, being in an X-Wing with an R2 unit with regenerating shields doesn't help. And then having to face off against 2 Star Destroyers at the end and a craft that wasn't designed to do that with enemies still shooting at you, yeah, it was pretty infuriating to get through. The fact that I somehow managed to finish it with a silver medal when I finally did boggles the mind and baffles the soul because it is absolutely one of the toughest levels of the entire game. I know there are some people that really like the Battle of Endor level for the challenge it provides. I honestly, I can't abide by it. It's it's awful. Um, a level so horrible I had to put it in its own tier. Fuck, strike at the core. Fuck this fucking level in its fucking ear. God damn, do I hate this goddamn level so much. Do you want to play a level where you can instantly game over in the first 30 seconds because the enemies shred the ally you're supposed to keep alive instantaneously? Do you like to play a level with a bunch of really tight, narrow corridors that, thanks to thanks to the controls, can be a pain in the ass to navigate because it's one wrong move between going through it perfectly and smacking your ship into it and losing a life? Do you like having to play a level that forces you to go through 3 sections of those aforementioned maze-like tight corridors in order to destroy vital parts? Do you like having to play through a level that does the whole does the whole outrun the explosion thing at the end, where not only do you have to contend with said affirmation tight corridors, but also have to do it while a giant fireball is right on your ass, so try to figure out the speed at which to bounce it out as nigh on impossible. Does any of that sound like fun to you? Does that sound like a good time? It doesn't? Well, congratulations! You're a lot smarter than Factor 5 was when they made it! This is not just the absolute worst level in the entire franchise, in my opinion. It is one of my most hated levels in any video game whatsoever. If I had to make a list of my most hated levels of all time, if this is not number one, it would easily be in the top 3. I absolutely despise this level so much for how utterly, unrepugnantly broken it is. It is absolutely miserable to have to go through it. And this is just playing as Wedge in the X-Wing. You want to try this thing in the Millennium Falcon, you absolute masochist? Well, congratulations. I admire how big and how strong the brass your balls are made out of. I applaud you. But please, for the love of God, 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 don't be surprised if everything goes to shit. To anyone who has managed to gold medal this, you are a god among men. And if you somehow manage to platinum medal this, then you should be like ascended to a higher level of godhood. You know, you should be immortalized in video game history. Like you deserve everything good that happens into your life. Because I refuse, absolutely refuse to try this level again. I will take my bronze medal, thank you very much. I will take that L. Fuck Strike at the Core. Oh. Next up is the Death Star. Next up, we're getting into the bonus levels. First up is the Death Star Escape. It's a nice little fun shooting mission that goes by really fast. I do think the accuracy requirements could be a bit tight, but otherwise, it's a fun little diversion. I enjoy it. The asteroid fields. The problem with this is just the Millennium Falcon in this game is absolute garbage. Like, it handles even worse than the Y-Wing does. It's absolutely abysmal to have to fit it through anything. And that would all be fine, but the shields on it are stupidly friggin' weak on it. Absolutely, absolutely awful to contend with. I mean, just yeah, it's not fun. Next up is Triumph of the Empire, which is basically a kind of what if scenario if Darth Vader were to win at the Empire itself were to win at the Battle of Yavin 4. It's a fun little level. I think the fact that you do get advanced cluster missile, that you do get cluster missiles, especially to get the homing upgrade, really makes it stupidly broken. I think the gold medal requirements are absolutely stringent for it, but other than that, it's pretty good level. And then there's the Revenge on Yavin, where you actually go to Yavin 4 itself and wreck everything up. This is honestly one of the better portion of the level just because it's not as strict and stringent with regards to the medal requirements and it's a lot more fun. But, it's pretty good. And then there's Endurance. I have no problem with Endurance. It's basically just the, survive as long as you can mission. If you like that kind of thing, cool, good for you. I personally, you know, am not a big fan of it in this particular subgenre. You know, I mean, in shooters, in first and third person shooters, I like it a lot, but flight sims, not so much. And then we are finally at, sorry, isn't this nice and fun to hear me all do that? Sorry about all that. Now we finally get to Rogue Squadron 3 Rebel Strike. I still enjoy this game a lot. It's got its issues, though. It's probably the weakest of the trilogy, in my opinion. Uh, you'll see why. I applaud Factor 5 for the ambition that they have with some of these levels, but my god, did the ambition fast exceed the talent. First up is Revenge of the Empire. The first level where you're defending Yavin 4 from the Empire's invading forces and have to do it. The first half of it's great. It's classic Rogue Squadron, just going around the X-Wing, shooting everything in sight. It's really fun. It's really solid. It's a nice adrenaline rush. And then you get to the on-foot section. Anyone who's played this game knows how badly the on-foot sections control in this. They are absolutely abysmal to go through. Where you're playing as any one of the characters and having to walk around and shoot at people with a blaster. It's easily the least refined part of the game, just from how floaty, twitchy, and unresponsive the controls are, and just how not fun they are to play. Like, for those of you who have played Star Fox Assault and have bemoaned and loathed how slippery and awful the on-foot sections for Fox are in the main campaign, well, take those sections from Star Fox Assault and somehow make them worse by the magnitude order of at least 3 times. They're absolutely horrible to go through, in my opinion. They're just the worst. So what would have been an S tier level has to go down to mid tier. Defiance on Dantooine. Yeah, because not only are you doing on-foot sections and turret sections, you're also doing speeder bike chases at the beginning and the end. And if you thought the on-foot sections were bad, my God, are the speeder bike sections even worse? They are so friggin' twitchy. So goddamn twitchy. And just the timing of it, everything. They're not the worst. It's not the worst speeder bike section. Oh no, it's not. I'll get to that in due time, but it's still absolutely awful. Next up is Defenders of Raltier, where you're actually in a snow speeder and have to defend basically a research facility. And yes, there are a lot of AT-ATs, but Factor 5 actually learned their lesson because not only can you tow cable them, but you could also do more expedient methods. Like if there's one on a bridge, you could shoot the bridge out from under them and it's to kill it. Or you could pick up bombs that are left around and fly them straight into the head of the actual AT-AT itself and destroy it. Yeah, pretty fun. Pretty nice that they give you that variety and taking down the toughest enemy. And even without that, it's still a very fun level. The only thing I've got to complain about it is it's kind of dull and gray. But other than that, again, really solid. Next up is the extraction on Raltier, where you're going through as an ATST and destroying everything. The ATST controls actually aren't too bad. They are a little bit stiff and unresponsive, but I kind of expect that if you're piloting an ATST. But it's still a fairly solid power fantasy, all things considered. It's not too difficult. The on-foot section does drag it down a bit, but thankfully it's toward the end of the level, so it doesn't drag it down too much. Yeah, it's really good. Next up is Battlefield Hoth. You start off with the on-foot section. Basically recreating the thing that Luke used in Empire Strikes Back, where he, zips up to the AT-AT, cuts through the bottom half with his lightsaber, chucks a grenade up there, and destroys it from the inside out. That's what you start the level off with, and then you go to a turret section where you have to defend yourself against ATSTs coming in from everywhere in a turret section. And then you do get into the X where you have to protect rebel transports from TIE bombers. Although those TIE bombers could easily destroy the rebel transports in a jiffy if you're not careful. And considering that the entire battlefield outside is cloudy, yeah. It's it's honestly a very disappointing level. And it's especially disappointing because usually the Hoth levels are some of the most solid levels. Well, not the solid levels, but coming off of how good the Battle for Hoth was in Rogue Leader, Rebel Strikes take on the Hoth level just nah. And that's another thing I'll also say in Rebel Strikes' detriment is that they're way too focused on recreating just scenes from the movies and not having a whole lot of original missions, which I think is very disappointing because in the first game, you had all these different missions that made the galaxy really feel alive and really gave a lot of great scenarios for Rogue Squadron and just they were different. They felt like their own thing. In Rogue Leader, you had a good mix of the movie-based levels and the new levels. I mean, you only had 10 levels, 15 if you count the bonus levels, but there was a nice solid mix of original content and recreating stuff in the movies. So if you wanted your original missions, you could have your original missions. If you wanted to just recreate stuff in the movies, you could just recreate stuff in the movies. With Rebel Strike, the vast majority of levels are all based around recreating scenes from the movies, and there's not a whole lot of original missions, which absolutely sucks because the original missions, for the most part, are so much stronger from a gameplay perspective than just recreating scenes from the movies. As you will see. Next up, Trials of a Jedi. You're basically recreating the Dagobah trading scene. It's absolutely infuriating. The controls are awful, especially with regards to the jumping. Yeah, it's pretty bad. And then finally the Sarlacc pit. And the only reason I'm putting it up here is one, it's mercifully short, and two, you can get platinum on it stupid easy. That's about it. Everything else about it, ugh. Next up is the Rated Bakura, where you're basically playing a B-Wing or anything that's got the ion cannons equipped, and you have to disable Imperial transports, have your own Rebel transports, grab the prisoners, defend them. It's actually a really, really solid level. It's pretty fun. Pre- it's got some great, got a great setup. It can be a little bit tough, just because, especially when more transports come in and you have to really micromanage and pay attention to which transports are getting attacked and which transports you need to defend, and just so there is a bit of a timing aspect involved, but it's nothing too bad. And if you actually manage to get to meet the requirements for silver medal, you'll actually go onto the planet itself in a TIE bomber and just to rescue one of your squad mates. And the TIE bomber sections are actually really nice. It's basically just the easiest shooting gallery around because it doesn't have lasers. Its primary weapon is um, concussion concussion missiles that have homing functions on them that can lock onto multiple targets and destroy them in one shot. So it's a nice little diversionary tactic, and it's honestly really cool that you do have that second part of the stage if you do well. It does kind of suck that it's restricted solely to if you get a silver medal or not, but I do appreciate the effort. So yeah, I definitely put it in top tier. Next up is Relics of Geonosis. The beginning of it is really solid. The ending of it is really solid because they're both around space. Of the mission of the on foot missions, this is the least egregious. Mainly because you're fighting off against a bunch of battle droids that one are not that tough as far as enemies are concerned, and two, you do get a shitload of thermal detonators to help you out. That'll destroy groups en masse, one at a time. So it's not too big of an issue, but I will say that it does kind of drag it down from being in top tier one to the one below it. Flying around in the Jedi Starfighter, just wrecking shit with the sonic mines is always fun towards the end. Next up is Deception at Destrillion. Um, First half of this level honestly sucks. Just having to go through all the laser gates in the A wing. It's not too bad at the first in the first kind of third of the first half of the level, but once you get to the final third, when the gates just get tighter and tighter and tighter, yeah, I definitely ended up failing that level quite a bit as a kid, smacking into all the laser gates from just how unreasonable they got. Once you figure out the memorization, it's subsequent playthroughs aren't too bad as long as you're careful. The TIE Interceptor section, no, not TIE Interceptor, TIE Advance section is a bit frustrating. Just because trying to find the little bastards can be really tough, especially when you're getting down to like your last two or three. Um, and even with the A-Wings having homing missiles to start off with, compared to the previous game, it's still not the greatest. If you want my advice, if you really want to get like a solid metal run at it, pick either the Jedi Starfighter with its sonic mines, or preferably pick the Naboo Starfighter that's got homing cluster missiles that could take out two groups of three at a time with just one missile if you aim it right. Um, the second half is probably the best bomb Y-Wings mission in the entire game, or in the entire series, I should say. Damning by faint praise, I know. But you have to disable, but disable super laser by, you know, taking out the shields first and then destroying the targeting dishes. It's fun. It's not too difficult. It actually is actually pretty effective with with the Y-Wing and how it controls. I do actually think it's the best on balance, but I'll still put it in the middle just because there's a lot of sections that do drag it down for me. Next up is Guns of Dubrillion. First part of the mission, you're walking around as an ATST, destroying everything. Again, it's really nice and fun. Like I said, the controls are a little bit stiff for the ATST, but not too bad. I think of all the on-foot or different or non-flight vehicle sections, it's easily the absolute best, these ATST sections. And then you get into the AT-AT in in the last 10% of the mission, and you get to wreck shit because you're basically invincible, and you're piloting a freaking AT-AT. It's absolutely awesome. Absolutely fantastic. And then finally is the Fondor Shipyard Assault. That's a it's a fine level, I would say. The first half of it is fairly solid, just destroying some of the stuff and then taking out the shield generator. Once you actually get into the actual shipyard itself and have to take out all the shield generators, though, I think it gets a little bit too difficult for its own good. There are way too many turrets and TIE fighters that'll easily shred you and take out your metal run in an instant just from all the shit that's going on. It's not, getting gold medal is a fairly big challenge sometimes if you don't know what you're doing. How I got mine, I have no idea. I can't say. Um, it's not awful. I just think it's kind of mid. There are some highlights, there are some lowlights. It all kind of evens out. This is nearly as bad as Strike at the Core. This is nearly as bad. Just once again, the bad speeder bike controls, the fact that you're dodging trees and trees all the time, trees that will insta kill you because you're still going at Mach 5 even if you're not using the boost function. It's horrible. It's absolutely awful to have to play through. Um and then Triumph of the Rebellion. Basically, this is the section where you start out as Chewie in the ATST. It's actually a really nice section. I think it does get a bit too difficult for its own good sometimes, but not with regards just to the terrain of the stage. But it's not that bad, and the fact that you actually can utilize the Ewok traps to take out the ATSTs like you did in the movies is a nice little touch, and it does add some variety to it. The second half, we're playing as Han and actually going into the shield bunker though. Uh, yeah, I'd have to put it right there. It's pretty bad. And then the bonus missions: Death Star Rescue, pretty awful. Escape from Hoth, also pretty awful. Flight from Bespin, pretty awful. They all have the same problem. You're on foot most of the time. Escape from Hoth has a really tedious turret section at the end that just isn't a lot of fun. Flight from Bespin, you're piloting the Millennium Falcon trying to pick up Luke, and considering how bad the Falcon is, that's not exactly fantastic. Attack on the Executor. This is actually a fairly fun level, all things considered. It's short, it's simple, it's sweet. It's a lot of fun. And Rebel Endurance. It's again, I just put it. No, I'm gonna put it there because you're doing it on foot. Ugh, just ugh. Yeah. But anyways, that is it for the Rogue Squadron level tier list. Like I said, I will post this tier list um in the video description so that you can play forward yourself, play around with it yourself, and yeah, let me let me know what you guys think of the tier list. If you got your own tier list, you can easily email it to me, which is my channel name g at gmail.com for any and all inquisitions. I've also got the link on my channel description. But thank you guys so much for watching this. As far as the general updates are concerned, I am moving to Idaho in the next 2 days, and we'll get set up. Sorry for not getting around to Resident Evil 8 before I left. Just need to clear out all the bobs and bits. As far as the future of this channel is concerned, I do have a couple future things that I want to do with it, but obviously, this is just a diversionary thing. Work is more important at this point. There are a couple new things I want to try. I do want to make like a countdown list at some point. Maybe get into more like Three Idiots discussion, like actually do like tier lists with the two friends that I play with. Maybe get around to that idea of just ranting about cars and video games and talking about it from the perspective of a massive gearhead. Who knows? I've got a lot of things. I just don't have the focus necessary to do it because I'm more focused on this job, focused on whatever job that I have, rather than trying to make this work out for me. This is just a diversionary um, thing that I like to do. Not that I don't try and put my all into it. I obviously do, but work comes before play as always, and this isn't work because I'm not making money off of it. But that's just how it goes. But anyways, thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Uh, Check out my channel for other tier lists that I do. These honestly tend to be my most popular videos, I think. I don't know why. Just because they're all completely unedited and unscripted. I guess maybe that's the appeal, but who knows? I don't know. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just the charisma of my personality. Be it first. But until next time, take care, everyone. Stay safe, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye.